Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by Seamus Brady from the Play on GAA podcast to run through all the weekend's club action. Certainly a lot to discuss, a lot to break down. You obviously had Watergraham's Glen get the job done against Moycullen, booked themselves into their very first All-Ireland Senior Club Football Championship final. And elsewhere, you had Kilmacud Crokes, who delivered once again, beating Cairns O'Rahilly's and put themselves in the All-Ireland final for a second year in a row. We'll discuss some other bits and bobs along the way. Obviously, Lee Keegan's retired, and obviously some of the crazy scenes around David Clifford, who got absolutely mobbed in O'Moore Park in Laois as well. That was quite a mad video to see. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by Declan Kirby GAA Star, best children's GAA book out there on the market at the minute. You can find it on Amazon, Easons, all good bookshops. So make sure to check it out in the description down below. Seamus, how is things with yourself? Obviously, a very busy weekend of club action, and we're down to two teams now in all the respective different championships.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Two very, very good semi-finals. Two very similar semi-finals. I think if you look at the pattern of the game, a goal was crucial in both of the games. The winning teams went into the last quarter with big leads, and they both, got pulled back by the team that went on to lose. But they both had nervy last few minutes to hang on to their victory. Obviously, the Glen getting through by a narrow margin and Crokes getting through by that goal. Two very similar semi-finals. For Crokes, a chance at redemption. Obviously, they lost in probably the cruelest fashion possible last year with that late goal against Kilmacud. And then obviously Watergraham's Glen, their first ever All-Ireland club final. They also went out to Kilmacud very narrowly last year as well. So they'll be thinking that, look, if Kilmacud went all the way last year, they should go all the way this year, and they're one step away from it now.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was two absolutely very interesting games. I mean, obviously the Watergraham's Glen Moycullen game has got a lot of criticism from the likes of Joe Brolly and whatnot for, I suppose, the spirit of how that game was played, but maybe we'll get onto that a little bit later. I suppose we'll start with the news maybe that broke a little bit earlier. It's obviously not club related as such, but Lee Keegan announces his retirement from the Mayo senior footballers. Just looking at some statistics of him here, like he played from 2011 to 2022, obviously now, with the fact he's retired, 7 Connacht titles in there, 1 National Football League title, 5 All-Stars, played in a whole host of All-Ireland finals as well, 67 appearances in the championship, 7 goals and 48 points. And in the league, 70 appearances, 8 goals and 69 points. Just looking at some stats on Wikipedia there. He obviously won Footballer of the Year as well in 2016, as well as a whole host of honours at club level as well, with Westport about intermediate level, and of course very recently at senior level, winning the county title with Mayo. So, I mean, Lee Keegan retiring, is he, like, where does he rank in your opinion in terms of the greatest player to never win an All-Ireland? I mean, he has to be right up there.
He's number one for me. Yeah, I really think he is. You listed it out there, and you actually forgot that, he was a nominee for Player of the Year in 2021. He led the way for Mayo, and just the amount of clutch moments that this guy had. I mean, you think about his goal year, like back-to-back years as well, 2016 and 2017, and both those times that he stuck that ball in the net, I have to say I thought Mayo were going to win. Both years in a row. When he scored, I was like, I don't see any way that Mayo don't win this game now. But then what happened next happened. He is, I've said this, I've been outspoken about this, he is probably the best right half back I've ever seen. James McCarthy is very close second, but in terms of a right half back, I'd have Jack McCaffrey as my left half back, but as my right half back, I think Lee Keegan. It's just, when he was at his peak, when he had those battles with Dermot Connolly in Croke Park, he was probably one of the most skilled players that's ever played the game in Dermot Connolly, but he more than met his match in Lee Keegan, and the battles between those two were epic. Like, that was, in terms of two players going up against each other, that was, a battle for the ages. Keegan is not only, in my opinion, probably the best player to never win All-Ireland. You could argue he's Mayo's greatest player in terms of, what he's done. Just the different roles that he's filled out, the different people that he's marked. And to think as well that in 2019, Conor O'Callaghan roasted him when he got put back into the full back line. And a lot of people were saying back then that he wasn't the same guy, he wasn't the same player anymore. And he came roaring back to nearly win Footballer of the Year in 2021. And it's a real shame that he doesn't have an All-Ireland medal. I'd like strip away the whole Dublin Mayo thing. As a footballer, he's one of my favourite footballers to have played the game. He more than deserves a Celtic Cross. And but he's nothing left to give in terms of like, he owes nothing to Mayo. He owes nothing to the game. He is one of the best players that I've seen. And all the best in retirement league.
Yeah, like, and I don't have the number there in terms of how many All-Ireland finals he's actually played in, but I'd imagine it's like, just off the top of my head, thinking them all
If
through.
you're counting replays,
yeah, it's around 7 or 8. Yeah, All-Ireland finals, I
5
think,
or
in
6
total.
at least.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's just mental, really. Like, and as you said there, like, rivalries aside, like, obviously when Dublin were playing Mayo in these All-Ireland finals, we obviously wanted Dublin to win, and we didn't want Lee Keegan to play well, but like, if anyone deserves one, it's definitely him, because I think down the years, a lot of Mayo players have got a lot of criticism for All-Ireland finals and maybe not showing up and maybe not producing their best performance on the day. And sometimes it's a little bit harsh, but, and sometimes maybe it's a little bit justified as well. But I think one player you cannot level that criticism to is Lee Keegan, because I don't remember him playing bad in an All-Ireland final off the top of my head. Maybe if I went back and watched every game, I changed my opinion, but my only memories as a Dublin fan was that he was such a clutch player, where he scored big points, big goals in big moments, time and time again. And that was when he was playing as a defender. Do you know what I mean? So, like, and that's quite rare. Like, so probably one of the biggest clutch players Mayo have had. And yeah, it's unfortunate that, he doesn't finish with that Celtic Cross.
Yeah, no, it's a damn shame. As I said, I wish he had one. I do genuinely wish he had one. Obviously, if I had to pick a year for him to win one, I would have picked 2021, where they weren't playing Dublin in the final. But I really, really wish that he would have. And it's a massive blow for Kevin McStay as well. Now, not only does he not have Oisin Mullen, who obviously has gone down under to play with us in the Australian Rules Football League, now he's without Lee Keegan too. I think the Mayo defence over the last 2 years has been their calling card. It has been the strongest part of their team. It's going to be very interesting to see how McStay builds that defence now next year. I think Paddy Durkin and Owen McLaughlin are nailed on as in the half-back line. But apart from that, it's going to be very interesting to see who goes where.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's definitely, and you'd wonder, like, he must have been thinking about this for a while, because obviously we're getting this decision in, about 2 weeks before the start of the National Football League, and obviously he wasn't playing in pre-season and anything else. So I don't know if he just delayed sort of his decision in coming out. Maybe he didn't want to make an announcement, and maybe he was just thinking it through, because like, it obviously is such a big decision to step away from something that you've been a part of for 10 plus years. But as you were saying there
was a sign though that he's going. And I think, scared to say this because of who might pop up in RTE's studio over the next 12 months, but if a player starts popping up in the punditry for RTE, that's my first kind of inkling that they might be out the door. Like Conor McManus, for example, has started showing up in RTE. He's 34 now, 35. I wouldn't be surprised if Conor McManus is gone in the next year or two. Because he's, once they're starting to line up that RT punditry job, they're testing what retirement might be like. And once it was okay for Lee Keegan, once, he started doing punditry, and I started noticing that, comments in the videos saying, don't do it, Lee, like, stick around for 1 year, like, stick around for 2 years, don't go. But that's the first inkling for me that someone is almost out the door.
Yeah, I think so. And then when you're seeing all the, pundits and everything that were going into management, you were seeing positions open up in the RT studios for the Sunday game. You were thinking, like, as long as he retires, he's definitely a shoe-in. And
he'll walk in. He'll be there for the big games next year, 100%.
And in terms of, and this is definitely a question even for the viewers who are watching as well, because I know there are plenty of Mayo supporters who do follow this channel. Like you mentioned it there earlier, that you think he could go down maybe as the greatest player to ever play, to ever put on a Mayo jersey. Now, obviously, we didn't see the teams back in 1951 or any of the other All-Ireland winning sides, so we can't really compare it to any of those greats or legends that played back then. But in terms of the modern era, and in terms of any team or any player who's played since Mayo have won an All-Ireland, Like, is he the greatest in your opinion?
You see, that Mayo have had so many great players. Like, they really, like, one player who was always my personal favourite was Kieran MacDonald because of how he played the game. Like, the things that Kieran MacDonald could do, the passes that he could play, the points that he scored, even the point that he got against Dublin in 2006, like, even though it was against us, it was an epic point. Like, the way he scored it, his style of play, even the hairstyle, the way that he looked, like he was just a cool player to like. And at the time, obviously, I was only 5 years old, 6 years old, so I loved watching Kieran MacDonald play, and I wanted to play like him. I think they've had some awesome players. Keith Higgins, it was outstanding. He deserves a massive shout. Cillian O'Connor obviously is right up there as championship top scorer. Aidan O'Shea is one that I think gets so much unjust criticism. I wouldn't put him up there with Lee Keegan, but he's been a great servant for this Mayo team and continues to serve to this day. Andy Moran obviously won Footballer of the Year 2017. They've had just amazing players, Mayo, and they have to have got to the final over and over and over again. James Nallen at centre half back, like, is an outstanding player. David Clark in goal, brilliant goalkeeper. I know he had trouble with his kickouts, but like, as a shot stopper, he's as good as I've ever seen a goalkeeper be. Sure, remember that save he made against Bernard Brogan in the semi-final 2012? Like, that was amazing. He was like a cat between the sticks there. The way he got out and shut down Brogan real quick. But, like, listing them out, I think it's genuinely between Lee Keegan and Keith Higgins in terms of the modern era. And I probably would go towards Lee Keegan in terms of the fact that he has won a Footballer of the Year and he has been up for another Footballer of the Year award only 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think I would as well, to be honest. Like, and I think when you look through these All Ireland finals, these big games, these big moments, like, he was one who stood up every time, like, and there probably were, and there is other players, great players that you mentioned, that probably haven't produced in All Ireland finals. So I think that's probably what shades it, in my opinion. But yeah, for anyone who's watching, like, let us know in the comments live or even after the stream. Like, let us know who do you think is the greatest Mayo footballer of all time. Is it Lee Keegan? I mean, Kieran MacDonald definitely has to be. I think he probably was number one maybe before Lee Keegan came along, but I'll be curious to know what people think in the comments. We'll crack on with the weekend's club games then. There was obviously 2 senior games to run through. We'll start with the game that was on first, which was Kilmacud Crokes 114, Cairns O'Rahilly's 14 points. Kilmacud Crokes booking themselves into back-to-back All-Ireland finals. It was definitely closer maybe than people expected. I think some people were expecting this to be a 6 to 7 point blowout, and there was maybe stages in the second half where it looked that way. I think Crokes hit 1-4, 1-5 without reply at the start of the second half. But in the end, Cairns O'Rahilly's made this a very close game, and with a bit more luck, they could have sent this game to extra time.
Yeah, and I was one of those people that expected it to be a 6 or 7 point win for Kilmacud Crokes. That I thought, look, Cairns, had been beaten 3 times in the Kerry Championship. They, scraped through against Era O'Guinness and against Newcastle West, teams that I would predict that Kilmacud Crokes would blow out the water. So I was thinking Crokes are going to do the same to Cairns. I thought Cairns would put in a good first half. No, my prediction was that Crokes would smash them early, like we've seen them do against the Downs, like we've seen them do against Port Darlington, and then they'd cruise it in the second half. And going into the last quarter, at the end of the third quarter, Crokes were 7 points up. So I think, if you're talking about, what you thought the game was going to be, going into the last quarter was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was exactly what a lot of people thought it was going to be. Cairns had put up a good fight, but Crokes were just better than them. Interestingly, Shane Walsh was held very quiet. Only 1 point from play and 1 free. Potential worry there for Kilmacud Crokes, but it speaks to how talented they are. Hugh Kenny steps up this time with 1-2. A crucial goal in the 34th minute. That was the difference between the two sides. But by God, Crokes looked nervous at the end, particularly when Jack Savage floated in that free deep into injury time, floats in that free, and I think it was in the 65th minute, floats in that free. And once it gets fired back across goal, there's a moment there where last year's final against Kilcoo flashes in your memory and you think, is it going to happen to them again? Because they were so comfortable that day against Kilcoo in the first half. I remember thinking they're walking this, and then they just didn't put it together in the second half. This time going into the final, they have Shane Walsh. They have a marquee forward to go with their brilliant forward line. So they'll be more confident going into this final this time than they were last year. There's all articles coming out about how they have, Kilmacud lifting the trophy as their lock screen on their phone and everything. So clearly they haven't let it go. Clearly they haven't, got over that. It still stings to this day, which is good. And going in against the Whitey Graham's Glen side, who also got the revenge on Kilmacud this year, it's a perfect opponent for them in the final because they're beating a team that already beat Kilmacud and they'll feel like they've gone one better.
Yeah, it was interesting, all right, because as I was saying to you off air, like I was at the game and I was actually, like, it felt like the majority of the support there was for Cairns O'Rahilly's, and I was actually sitting right beside, close enough to the bench, and you could see the management team in front as well. And like for the majority of the second half, it was a real flat atmosphere. You just felt like Crokes had absolutely not the complete stuffing out of Cairns O'Rahilly's. Like their support was a lot quiet, and then sort of out of nowhere, like Crokes just started making silly mistakes. They gave away a few loose passes. They started losing a lot of kickouts. They started going longer on their kickouts when they had been going shorter. Like David Moran, I thought was very good for Cairns O'Rahilly's. And then they got a couple of points, and all of a sudden, like the ground had sort of lifted. Like the management were even sort of waving their hands up to the crowd to sort of get them involved. And you just got this sense that Crokes, for the first time, maybe since the Dublin Championship, look very vulnerable here. And as we said, like with a bit more quality in that final third, and there was even one or two shouts for penalties in there as well that maybe could have been given. So I mean, yeah, like I think for Cairns O'Rahilly's, like they're quite unlucky, like they didn't at least get extra time out of this.
Yeah, and I think they'll be getting a thank you off Whitey Graham's Glen as well, because they showed up some potential weaknesses there in Kilmacud Crokes, some potential things to get at them there with, but they could have a massive ace in the pack here. Obviously, it's only been published recently that about Paul Mannion's fitness, and there's rumours now that Paul Mannion could actually be back in the frame to play in the All Ireland Club final. Do I think he'll start? No, I don't think he'll start. I don't think they would start him, but what a weapon that would be to have him on the bench, to have him to be able to bring on, say if they do get to the third quarter and they are 10 points up or they are 5 points up and they can bring on Paul Mannion to help see them over the line. I think, that could fix a few issues that they've been having.
Yeah, like, and he was on the bench actually yesterday as well, but he was an unused substitute. I think he was wearing number 28. So like he's clearly obviously not far away from returning. So you'd imagine in an All Ireland Club final, he's surely going to play some part. I'd say whether
they're not going to not play him in that. Like especially Paul Mannion himself. He missed last year's one, and he watched them lose agonisingly close. And I think he'd be saying, here, take out that freeze spray and spray it all over. Like he'd be injections to high heaven. Like he'll play no matter the injury, I think.
Yeah. Like he probably won't start, but you'd imagine he'll make some sort of cameo appearance coming off the bench. But as you were saying there, like Shane Walsh with 2 points, he did score a worldie of a point in the second half from play. But other than that, he was fairly quiet. But as we've said before, like I think it's testament to Kilmacud Crokes, testament to the likes of Hugh Kenny, Shane Cunningham, Dara Mullen, who all once again stood up. And it's proof again that although Walsh was key in Kilmacud Crokes getting over the line against the Fianna in the Dublin Championship final, that they do have a tremendous amount of players in their panel, and they're not as reliant on a one individual as people might think.
Yeah, and then on top of the names that you mentioned, they've Shane Horn, they've Tom Fox, they've Aidan Jones, they've, talent stacked upon talent. And if you bring Paul Mannion back into that, like it's just an amazing forward line. And yeah, like they have always been a unit, Crokes. That's what has kind of separated them from other teams that have standout players. Crokes are brilliant from 1 to 15. They're fantastic. They've even brought through new lads this year. You're talking the likes of Theo Clancy. You're talking the likes of Michael Mullen, who all look really impressive. Like the fact that Crokes have had lads in the last 5-6 years that have played for Dublin and they're not in the panel this year. The likes of Liam Flatman, who played in the league for Dublin, and then he just, he hasn't featured. Other club sides, do anything to get their county players back. Crokes don't really need their county players or ex-county players, which is remarkable when you look at it. That like You know, they're without Liam Flatman, and you wouldn't even notice it really. Whereas Cairns that they were playing against had flown back all these lads from Dubai, flown them all back from wherever they were around the world because of, you know, the system that is in Kerry. Once Dingle lost, you know, then it was like, okay, well, time to fly everyone back in because now we have a game to play. Like, it was a bit mad. But yeah, like, I'm not saying that the likes of Mannion and the likes of, you know, Shane Walsh aren't crucial to Crokes. They are. But I'm saying that the fact that Crokes have such a unit about them as well, that from 1 to 15, they're all strong. I know Shane Walsh is obviously the main man in that side right now, but the fact that he was kept to just a point and they still managed to get enough scores. Hugh Kenny still stood up with 1-2. Darren Mullen still stood up. Shane Cunningham still stood up. It shows that they aren't just a one-man show. They have other threats, and that's what makes them so dangerous.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and again, it's another game without conceding a goal. Like, I don't think they've conceded a goal now, and I don't know how long they didn't concede one in the final. I think since Coola potentially, in the quarterfinals. Thomas Davis, yeah,
semi-final. And Thomas Davis hit a goal in the first 5 minutes. Fionn Murray hit that goal in the first 5 minutes, and they barely let Thomas Davis score in the rest of the game. So pretty much from that goal, Crokes have been, you know, Conor Ferris hasn't really had a save to make.
Yeah, like, that's the thing as well. Like, even yesterday, I can't remember any real, like, obviously they did kind of a few half goal chances at the end of the game, but there was no clear cut goal chance. And even like in the Naas game, I remember that Naas created 1 or 2 chances, but other than that, like, I don't remember too many goal chances. Like we've talked about it before, even in the Dublin season preview. Like, Kilmacud Crokes have a whole host of top class defenders, and that's going to be the big test now for White Graham's Glen, to see if they can sort of find a way in behind that defense, because, you know, like, they're just not conceding and not giving much away, these lads.
Well, that's what I mean, is that, like, on paper, if you're actually to look at it, and this might be controversial, but on paper, if you're to look at it, Cairns Rathleys have 3 forwards that are better than, you know, any forward that Waddy Graham's Glen have. Like, Waddy Graham's Glen's best forward is Danny Tallon, in my opinion. Cairns Rathleys have Tommy Walsh, they have Barry John Keane, and they have Jack Savage.
Yeah.
And Kilmacud Crokes still didn't let them score a goal. You know, Waddy Graham's Glen are very similar to Crokes in that they're kind of built off a very strong midfield, a very strong defence, and then they have a couple of key forwards that, you know, produce the goods in every game. But it would be difficult. It'd be difficult for them to score a goal against Crokes. I really would be surprised if they get one, because they're not as free-flowing an attack as, say, Kilcoo were. And for long periods in that final last year, Kilmacud Crokes held Kilcoo and held their attack until that obviously late burst where they did get the goal. Crokes' defence is the best defence, in my opinion, in the All-Ireland Club Championship period. I think their back six is amazing, considering the fact that, as I mentioned, over the last couple of years, they've lost Liam Flatman, they've lost Cian O'Sullivan, who I think we both agree is probably one of the best defenders to have played the game. Cian O'Sullivan is just remarkable. Considering they've lost them two, and they're still as tight at the back as they are, it's a real testament to not just the players that they have, but the defensive structure that they have, that it is absolutely mastered at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and it will be a fascinating final, because White Graham's Glen, you could equally say, have a very good defence. Haven't really conceded too much either. And I suppose we'll discuss their game now. Obviously, it was White Graham's Glen 111, Moycullen 12 points. Glen getting themselves into their first ever All Ireland Senior Club Football Championship final. So, look, it was maybe not the best game viewing wise. Like, first half was very slow. There was a lot of defensive football on show. And I've seen Joe Brolly obviously coming out with an article complaining, as he usually does. But look, in the end, like like Glen have done what they've came to do. That's their style of play. That's how they win football matches. And, you know, like they got the job done.
Yeah, it shows how bothered Joe really is by the style of play, considering that a Derry club has made it into the All-Ireland Club final and he's not happy. Like, you think that maybe he'd be celebrating the achievement, but no. It is one hell of an achievement for Malachy O'Rourke. It's proof. I mean, we did one of our videos there, the end of year awards. I think we forgot Malachy O'Rourke for the manager. But we he's one hell of a shout. I mean, you watch the job he's done with Waddy Graham's Glen to revive them as well after such a painful defeat to Kilmacud the year before, to get them going again after losing, such a key man in Kieran McFall. Like, they've gone further now and they're back in the final. Not back in the final, sorry, they're in the final for the first time. And considering that Moycullen as well, it would have been their first final too, considering that, they won the Galway Championship for the first time in 2020. Obviously, COVID meant there was no provincial. Then this year, they get through, they win Connacht for the first time, and then they're in to play against the Glen in the semi-final. So both teams would have had a lot on the line here, and maybe the slow start, maybe that it was ponderous, was kind of in showcasing of that, because both teams realised that they could make history for their club in the first half, and maybe nerves were flying around a little bit there. Interesting stat, actually. This is the first All-Ireland club final where it will be a Derry side against a Dublin side in the final since 1995. And interestingly enough, the Derry side in that final was Balahi, and the Dublin side that was in that final, which won, was Kilmacud Crokes. So maybe it's a good omen for Crokes that they're up against a Derry side in the final, because last time that it happened, they came out on top.
Yeah, and I think that club Balahi, was it you said? I think someone commented on the match reaction yesterday saying that they're actually neighbours with White Graham's Glen as well. So kind of an interesting one. Yeah, kind of a good omen from a Kilmacud Crokes point of view. But yeah, as you were saying, like from a White Graham's Glen perspective, like they are probably quite similar to Kilmacud Crokes. Like they're built off a very strong defence. Like I was just looking through it there. They've conceded just 2 goals, in the entire, since from their county final against Slotneil onwards, they've only conceded 2 goals, one against Kilmacud, the other against Errigal Kieran, and they're 2 very, very top class sides. So I don't think there's any shame in conceding goals there. And obviously midfield wise, you could argue that's their big strength, because 3 points from Emmett Bradley, Conor Glass getting on the score sheet as well, and with David Moore and Karen O'Ratty's, I thought that was an area they kind of found a few vulnerabilities with Kilmacud Crokes. So that might be something maybe for Glen to hang their hat on going into this final.
Yeah, I believe that Crokes slightly have the better defence, and that's no disrespect to the Glen's defence. Waddy Graham's Glen have right up there as the best defence in the club championship, but I think Waddy Graham's Glen have a stronger midfield pairing. Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley, I think, is the strongest midfield pairing in the All-Ireland Club Championship period. It's Derry's best midfield pairing. The fact that they both play for Waddy Graham's Glen is a massive boost for them. Going forward, both defenses are so good that I feel like this will be a low-scoring final. They will both almost kind of cancel each other out. And this is where I'd kind of lean towards Kilmacud Crokes from the outset, because I'm saying, both defenses will cancel each other out. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Midfield battles are going to be crucial. So you could look at that angle and say, well, Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley will get on top in midfield. They could supply better ball into the Waddy Graham's Glen forwards. But I'm saying, when you look at, now you have 2 defenses that are cancelling the forward lines out. You have a very low-scoring game, and you're thinking, now it's the type of game where you need special players to produce special moments, special players to produce crucial points at crucial stages. And that's where I look at Kilmacud Crokes and say, do you know what? They have 2. They have Shane Walsh and they have Paul Mannion. And I'm thinking, do Waddy Graham's Glen have a player that can produce amazing points at amazing times? You're looking at, throughout the club championship, Stevie O'Hara has come off the bench against Errigal Kieran, and he kicked amazing points off the bench at clutch moments when they really needed someone to. Emmett Bradley and Conor Glass have roared forward from midfield to kick crucial points at crucial stages. Michael Warnock got a fisted point against Moycullen here when they really needed one. But Shane Walsh and Paul Mannion, I know Mannion will at best probably be coming off the bench, but they are 2 players that can produce pure special moments. And I think it would make me lean a little bit more towards Crokes in a defensive game.
Yeah, I think their attack definitely is better. Even with some of the other players like Shane Cunningham and Tom Fox, Hugh Kenny, like the way they move the ball as well, I think is going to be different to anything that White Graham's Glen have come up against so far. But
And now
yeah,
it's
like they're
Croke Park as well. It's
yeah,
a big pitch. Like Crokes are more used to playing in Croke Park. Like they've played, the entire Leinster Championship in Croke Park. They've, not just this year, but the year before. And then they obviously played the All Ireland Club Championship final in Croke Park last year. Their experience with Croke Park could be a massive, massive boost in their favour as well.
yeah, I mean, one trump they do have though, like, and as you said there, is probably going to be their midfield. Like we've kind of mentioned it there, like with Emma Bradley and Conor Glass, and even Michael Warnock, who nearly plays as an extra man in midfield at times. So like that probably will be some sort of advantage for them going into the final. But as we were saying, like Crokes attack is very good, but it is going to be a very intriguing final because like they are very similar in more ways than one.
Yeah, no, it's like both managers kind of went in and said, okay, we're going to get the defence solid first. And we have, our county stars at midfield. Craig Diaz has played for Dublin for years now, on and off. And in my opinion, he should be in the panel this year. Then you've got, obviously, Conor Casey has got run-outs, Ben Shovlin too, to my knowledge anyway. I'm not sure if he's actually played a championship game for the seniors, but, he's been floating around the panel. He's a brilliant player. Then the forwards, it's just, I think Crokes, you're right. Crokes do have a stronger forward line. So if Waddy Glen are going to win this, it's going to be a narrow game. And you're talking about what Waddy Glen have to avoid here is they have to avoid an early smash where Crokes get a goal in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes. They need to get through the first 20 minutes without conceding a goal, because what we've seen from Kilmacud Crokes throughout the entire club championship is once they get ahead of you, you don't catch them. Once they get ahead of you by 4, 5, 6 points, their game management is brilliant. They hang on to that lead for the rest of the game. I mean, to your knowledge, have Crokes gone in front by 4 points, 5 points in the club championship and been caught? Or had they been, overtaken? No, not really. So once they get ahead, you very rarely catch them. So the first 10, 15 minutes of this game are crucial. Waddy Glen need to not concede a goal in that first 10, 15 minutes. And knowing how good the defense is, I would back them to do that. I would back them to get through the first 10, 15 minutes without conceding a goal, which sets it up to be a very, very close game, with 1.2 points in the difference. It won't be any more than that. Whoever wins this game is going to win by a point or by 2 points. I could see it going to extra time. I could see it going right down to the wire. And I'm just saying that moment of magic, Shane Walsh can provide that. Paul Mannion can provide that off the bench. Who would you look to provide that for Waddy Glen? Probably Conor Glass, but he's going to be in midfield. He's going to have some battle on his hands against Craig Diaz. It's one of those things that Shane Walsh, for me, could be the difference. And knowing how controversial his whole transfer has been, the fact that he was the difference in the Dublin Club final, knowing the way that the world works, I wouldn't be surprised if Shane Walsh is the difference in this All-Ireland final and give that controversy some more juice.
Yeah, he kicks the winning point or something like that. I mean, it would be that'd be a funny one, all right. I suppose from a Moycullen perspective, I mean, they probably were very defensive themselves at times. Like, and I was just looking at it there. Like, apart from Desi Keneally, they didn't really get any of the other forwards in the game. Like Peter Cook hit 2 points as well. So suppose from a Moycullen perspective, it probably was a case of maybe nerves as well. It wasn't really until the final sort of 10, 15 minutes, I felt that they really sort of opened the shackles off and decided, let's actually have a go at this. But yeah, like I suppose if you can't get your other forwards into the game, it's always going to be tough to come through a game of any nature, let alone a All-Ireland Club semi-final.
Well, there you go. You said it there. Like Desi Keneally with 8 points, Peter Cook with 2 points. They hit 10 points out of Moycullen's total. I mean, what does that tell you? They were very, very reliant on them too. They have been reliant on Desi Keneally primarily for the scores throughout the championship. You would look to other players in that scenario. You would look to the likes of the Kellys, Owen Gallagher to pop up with crucial scores for them. It didn't happen on this occasion. And, going into the last quarter, Waddy Glen were 5 up with 20 minutes left after Tiernan Flanagan's goal. So, it did look ominous for them at that stage. And they managed to fight back. They brought it back, and it ended up, quite fittingly being Peter Cook and Desi Keneally on that free, trying to work a bit of magic for Moycullen, because they had led the way for them throughout. Both of them have given such a valiant effort, in this club championship for Moycullen. But Glen hung on and win the game. I think the first 10 minutes were crucial for Wally Games Glen. That really set them off, which we were talking about Wally Games Glen having to avoid that early onslaught from Kilmacud Crokes. In the first 10 minutes, Wally Games Glen went 4-0 up here. And, the fact that they got such a good start, I think, was crucial for them in winning the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and in terms of that All Ireland club final, like, what would be your prediction right now in terms to win it? I mean, it's very, very hard to call. It'll be such a close final, I'm sure, but you sounded like you were leaning towards Kilmacud Crokes, and I think that's going to be in the general vibe amongst most people this year, but I'd imagine you're sticking to that.
Yeah, I'm going to go Kilmacud Crokes. I know Luke, my co-host, would play on GAA. I know he's a Waddy Graham's Glen man. He will probably go. He said Waddy Graham's Glen from the start. I've said Kilmacud Crokes from the start. There's never been a game that I've not backed them in. They they fought off a really good Nafina side in that in that Dublin football final. Thomas Davis, even in the semi-final, I predicted Thomas Davis to give Crokes some trouble, and Crokes mopped the floor with them after Thomas Davis got that opening goal in the first few minutes. And as you mentioned, they haven't conceded a goal since. They, comfortably saw off Naas, comfortably saw off Port Arlington, who won 3 in a row in Laois. They comfortably saw off the Downs in the Leinster final, and they've beaten now the Munster champions, Cairns O'Rahilly's, and they were 7 points up going into the last quarter. I know that they, were pulled back a bit, but they still won the game by 3 points. Even if that ball goes into the back of the net, like, it goes to extra time. I think we know that Crokes probably have the stronger bench. I still would have backed them to win the game anyway. Going into this game against Waddy Graham's Glen, my actual prediction of how I think the game is going to go is I think it's going to be a very tight opening 20 minutes where Waddy Graham's Glen will know we cannot concede a goal in this. We cannot let Crokes get 4 or 5 points ahead of us early on. And I think they will. I think no team will get out ahead of the other one by more than 3 or 4 points in the entire game, because they both will not allow that to happen. And I think it will be a very, very tight, very tough game of Gaelic football. And I think when the clutch moments come, I think Crokes have more guys who can kick amazing points at crucial times. I think Conor Glass will be watched very tightly by Kilmacud Crokes. They'll have a special plan just for him. And when it comes down to it, we've seen that if you take Conor Glass out of the game for Waddy Graham's Glen, I don't know who steps up. But if you take Shane Walsh out of the game for Kilmacud Crokes, Hugh Kenny got 1-2. Darren Mullen will step up. Shane Cunningham will step up. Paul Mannion can come off the bench. I think both teams will have plans for the key men of the other teams. And I think just Crokes have more threats than Waddy Graham's Glen in terms of going forward for crucial points at crucial times. I'm going to say Crokes by a point to win this.
Yeah, I'd fancy Crokes as well. Like, similar to you, like I've backed them from day one, and I haven't seen anything to change my mind. Like, I think it was tough for them in times in Dublin. You could argue, like, in the Dublin Championship, that's really where they've been tested, and they've come through some really tough games there, as opposed to really since then. I know Cairns O'Rahilly's ruffled a few feathers in this one, but generally they were always very comfortable and never looked like losing the game. Porrick says Kilmacud Crokes will score up to a total of 20 in All Ireland final. Glen will not get near that total. Rory O'Carroll to win his second All Ireland club medal. Yeah, and as you said there, like, you'd imagine it is going to be low scoring enough, given how both sides have played. Like, it's probably not going to be the best game of football, and probably not going to be the best final. But
I can see it being 111 to 12 points or something. Like, I can see it being a score like that.
Could we get any late drama, do you think, even like last year, extra time? Or
yeah, I think we definitely could, because I think it's going to go into the last quarter still 1 point in at 2 points in, and that's why my prediction is, when it comes down to the clutch moments, I think Kilmacud will spring Paul Mannion off the bench with 20 minutes to go, and then all of a sudden they've got 2 world beaters in attack, with very, very good players around them like Darren Mullen, Hugh Kenny. And I think when it comes down to it, Crokes will have more guys to take the shot at crucial times than Waddy Graham's Glen have. And I think that is what is going to get them over the line. I think they're going to get over the line in the last 15 minutes. They're going to get crucial points at crucial times. I think that is what is going to get them over the line. Could be made to eat these words, but that's what I'm going with right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, there was obviously some other All Ireland Club semi-finals as well, and we obviously seen Fossa get the job done against Castletown of Meath. They won 3-14 to 11 points. The Cliffords sharing 9 points between them as well. And we have a video to play here as well. I'm sure most people have seen it on Twitter and on social media and everything else, just of the crowd following the full-time whistle. I don't think I've ever seen a huge amount of people run to one player like this before, but we'll play the video and then we'll discuss it after. I mean, the Clifford craze is real. Like, I don't think I've ever seen fans mob one player like that before. And like, we've discussed Clifford's ability enough, but like his level as a star is just frightening in many ways. Like, and I think this is going to be like, we've seen scenes like this already up and down the country, and I think we're going to see more of this now, to be honest.
Oh yeah, without doubt. I mean, he's playing. Sure, we're hearing people traveling from all over the country down to watch a junior championship match just because David Clifford is playing. Like, that's the star that he's got to. But he is a star. He's the biggest star in Gaelic football that I can remember, really. I mean, who's reached that level of fame, really, to your memory? Like, I think Bernard Brogan was pretty popular at the start of the 2010s, but obviously that was a different time. It was a time when social media wasn't as prevalent. But David Clifford doesn't have social media. He doesn't have Instagram. And I think that's one of the things that, makes his star even more impressive, because he is a star just because of how damn good he is. Like, it's the same thing of, when you watch The Last Dance and Michael Jordan is talking about the sponsorships that he was getting and the attention that he was getting. And he was saying, look, if I wasn't scoring what I was scoring, if I wasn't playing how I was playing, I wouldn't have got any of that. David Clifford's star is based on his game. It's based on how good he is. It's based on the fact that every game David Clifford plays, he scores a ridiculous amount. He scores a ridiculous amount. I think, 8 points, 9 points every game that he plays. And particularly in the junior championship, if you want to see a player score a hat-trick, go and watch Fossa and you have a pretty good chance of seeing David Clifford stick away 3 goals. Like, he's that good. But my God, that every single person in the stadium is running towards him. Like, how do you even get used to that? What do? Do you stop? Like, you don't have a pen to sign anything. I'm sure they probably provided him with one, but that'd be pretty frightening, seeing all these people running towards you. Like, imagine if, obviously we don't know him personally. Like, imagine if he's an anxious guy deep down, or imagine if he's a bit nervous. Like, that's pretty frightening, having 1,000 people running towards you at the same time.
Yeah, in fairness, he definitely looks like a man that embraces it anyway, which is good to see. Like, I think I've seen him, like, in different video clips where he'll stay back, he'll sign the autographs, he'll speak to people, which is great to see, because I think the last thing we want is someone who's a huge star to just ignore autographs or be an idiot or whatever. Like, thankfully enough, he seems very level-headed, and
he seems like just a good guy, to be honest. He seems like a very nice fella. Like, I mean, my favorite thing with David Clifford is seeing he's just very just a good bloke. Like, that's just how he seems. And I think my favorite clip of all time is him with John Small, when John Small was wrestling him around, and then Clifford offers him a fist bump straight after. Like, he knew it was part of the game. Like, John Small is going to get into him because he is such a good player. Like, he just seems like a level-headed bloke and seems pretty well cut out to deal with that level of fame, that level of notoriety, because he doesn't have an ego that is potentially dangerous. He doesn't have a ridiculously hot temper. He doesn't have this is all looking from the outside. Like, this is what we're just picking up. I've never spoke to David Clifford personally, but I've listened to interviews that he's done, and he just seems like he was kind of ready for this level of notoriety, this level of attention. Because, I mean, the only other person that I can compare him to in terms of how good his stock was coming into the senior side was Joe Canning, when Joe Canning broke through for Galway hurling. That's the only one that I can think of. Like, we knew watching this guy in the minor final in 2017. Do you remember they played Derry and he scored 4 goals in a minor All Ireland final? Like, I remember watching that game and being like, this fella's a problem. Like, this fella's a problem. If he gets the right horses to go with, this fella's going to be the top guy in Gaelic football, and he is right now, and he's well cut out to deal with it. It looks like.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose when you look at his level of stardom, like, and I think we've seen this in times in other sports where almost the star nearly becomes bigger than the sport. Do you think we could ever get something like that with David Clifford, where he almost becomes nearly too big for the GAA? Or like, obviously it's on a national scale, so it's never, it's never going to get bigger than a national scale, and people who aren't into the GAA, probably won't watch him realistically. But in terms of his stardom, like, you could see him really go, like for himself, in terms of business, sponsorships, all the rest. Like, he really could become, huge, not just in the GAA, but in the whole country, really.
But that's what I mean. It's all up to him. I think he has the potential to do that. We've talked about stars that have transcended the sport. Like, people would have heard of Michael Jordan before they heard of the NBA. People would have heard of Conor McGregor before they heard of the UFC. People would have heard of Muhammad Ali before they heard about boxing. Like, stars of the past have transcended their sport, and Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, exactly the same. People would have heard of them before they heard of the teams that they played for, the leagues that they played in. And when you look at why, it is down to the business that they did, the sponsorships, the fact that they were everywhere. Conor McGregor used his star to move into, making proper 12, to fully maximize his potential. And then obviously, his businesses with the Black Forge, and then he's got a new stout as well. He's used his stardom very cleverly to transcend the sport. Same with Michael Jordan, obviously the Nike deal, and then the fact that he was on McDonald's adverts. Like, he was everywhere in America. He was part of America's culture spreading across the world. If you look at clips of Michael Jordan from the 1990s, like when he's walking through France, he's getting why they ever mentioned is a national. I don't know if I don't know if I cut out there, but yeah, I was just saying that it's all up to him. It's all up to where he wants to go with this. If he, cashes in on this opportunity and starts popping up in adverts all up and down the country for different things, I think he will be one of the biggest stars in Ireland, regardless of sport. I think he already is, but I think he could get up on that level where he could be the biggest star that the GAA has ever seen.
I think so, yeah. And obviously we've discussed this before, and I've discussed it with other people I've had on the podcast as well. Like, and as you were saying, like with names like Lionel Messi, Ronaldo, Muhammad Ali, like, these are all recognizable names to people who probably don't even follow those sports. Like, I remember even around the World Cup final, and watching it with people who wouldn't be into sport, but yet they know who he is. They know that name, they know Ronaldo. And I think if you can get someone like a Clifford to be that person for the GAA, like, it will only take the sport on further, and who knows where it could go. Like, that's why I think it could have the potential to be something very exciting.
But that's what I mean. It's an interesting one to look at, because you've got Larry McCarthy there, who's the GAA president, and he has a serious background when it comes to business and promotion and marketing. He's got a star there. He's got an absolute star there in David Clifford. And he's got a rivalry now, which is very interesting, between Kerry and Dublin, because Dublin have got back Paul Mannion and they got back Jack McCaffrey and stuff like this. And like, me personally, I expected more. It's obviously a debate for another time, but I expected, once he became GAA president, I expected more GAA content to come out. I expected more match previews, match reviews. We only have one GAA show a week on the national station, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like on the national channel, we only have one GA show a week, and that's the Sunday game, like to recap the
And
weekend.
that's even when it's on. It's not even on
Yeah,
for club. There's no club Sunday game. So
it's
like,
ridiculous. Like to look at it and say you've got an absolute star here, a guy that is adored up and down the country. Like me and you think he's a great bloke, and he plays for Kerry. Like he was literally one of the main reasons that we didn't win the All Ireland last year. And look at those scenes there. Every single kid in the country is looking up to David Clifford and wants to play Gaelic football the way that David Clifford plays it. The GA have a star here that they could market as, our Michael Jordan, as our Lionel Messi. Like as someone that all the youngsters playing the game look up to and want to replicate and want to be as good as one day. I think GA coverage needs an overhaul. In 2023, we need more programs. We need more, previews, reviews, player interviews, different types of GA programs. Like look at the Premier League, like the amount of content that comes out about the Premier League, like more GA documentaries. Why is there not a documentary about Dublin's 6 in a row? Why is there not a documentary about the 2010 season where, Kildare hit the crossbar in the last minute and all the big counties got knocked out in the quarterfinals that year? Like Kerry got knocked out in the quarterfinal, Tyrone got knocked out in the quarterfinal. That was a crazy year. Where's the documentaries about, legends of the game, Mickey Hart and the like? Like we need more content in 2023 to increase the viewership. Because if you look at it, that's how the UFC got so big. The free content that then gets people involved and gets people interested in the game. Well, what is this game? Where do all these people play? And I think social media is absolutely crucial to that. David Clifford is a star. I mean, you saw that with your TikTok, that when you uploaded it about David Clifford, like your phone absolutely got hockeyed out of it the second you uploaded it. Like this guy is a star. And I think Larry McCarthy and the whole structure of the GAA should acknowledge that and say, well, we need to up our marketing for 2023 to get more eyeballs on the sport. That will not only help with the game, but it would help with the revenue. It would help with, facilities and making the game just better in general. And I think, David Clifford is a massive cog in that potential machine.
Yeah, and it is very true. Like, because anytime I've had Clifford in the title of a video or even in the thumbnail, like those videos do well. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I've tried not to do that too much because I don't want to take the mick either. But at the same time, like there clearly is some evidence there that shows that, like, if it's working on my channel, what could it do for the official GAA? Do you know what I mean?
I know,
like
exactly.
And that's what you look at. And I'm surprised as well, even that like TV companies around haven't even picked up Foss's games. Like I don't know, maybe Foss's game might have been on Clubber.ie or something like that, or one of them pay-per-view sites or whatever. But I'm surprised like RTE or TG Cahir, one of them. I know TG Cahir are showing a lot as it is, and maybe they probably didn't have time. But considering that game was on Saturday, I think at 1 p.m., considering the amount of people who would have probably traveled to see that game, like people would watch it. If that's on RTE, like people would watch that, and people would actually probably, you could arguably say, watch that game more than the actual senior games. So
yeah,
it just goes to show, there's definitely a lot they could do and they should do.
Yeah, because like as we've said, I mean, the coverage side of the GAA, and it's getting, to me, it's getting more annoying because not only are we seeing less and less content, but we're seeing safer and safer and safer content. Like anytime I watch now an official show, it just sounds so scripted. It sounds so like the best things about the punditry was when they would argue. I would love, one of my favorite Sunday game moments is when Joe Brolly's arguing with, I think it was Tony Davis, and he was saying that Cork haven't beaten Kerry in a big game in Croke Park, and Tony Davis is so frustrated. Like, why are you saying that? Like, and it was brilliant TV, brilliant entertainment, and now, like, all the pundits just agree on everything. It's very safe. It's very, in my mind, it's kind of scripted. And obviously I could be wrong. But when you look at now, Joe Brolly's not going to be there next year. Pat Spillane isn't going to be there next year. Colin O'Rourke isn't going to be there next year. Like, all our favorite moments of the last 5-6 years have been when, stuff has gone wrong in the commentary box or the commentary booth. And it's an interesting one to look at because, like, obviously this is a bit of a segue here, but like RT have kind of moved away. I think social media showed that people actually like moments where the commentary goes wrong or the coverage goes wrong. People like that. Like people like characters. People like people that, have reactions. The UFC, one of the, most watched videos that the UFC has uploaded is when Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier are flying back in the chair and they have their eyes like this and they're like, oh my God, like that type of thing. Characters in the coverage side are crucial to the viewership. And say with Sky Sports, they've actually fully embraced now that YouTube and stuff has showed them that people like coverage that's a bit more human. It doesn't feel robotic. And that's why they upload like clips where, they're having debates and, they're all laughing and they're having a bit of banter with each other and, they're, slagging each other off a little bit like Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, and they're showing the clip where Chris Kamara is saying, I don't know, Jeff, like all this stuff. They've moved into it and now they're really embracing it. Whereas RTE, it feels to me, are going the other way. They're wanting less mistakes and less humor in their coverage. And it's very matter of fact, this is what's happening. And I just wonder, will that actually, serve them well in terms of viewership? Or will, if another company comes along, like obviously Sky Sports are pulled out now. There was rumors that Amazon wanted to get into covering GAA. There was rumors that Virgin wanted to get into covering GAA. Like if they came in with a presenter who was very charismatic and very funny, and they came in with pundits like Pat Spillane, like Joe Brolly, like which would you watch?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like, and that's the exact point. Like, I think people would gravitate more towards, and I know people complain about pay-per-view and everything else, but I think if it does its job right, then I don't really see what the big issue is. I think most people in today's world are used to paying for your Amazons, your Skys. That's just kind of how it is. Like, look at GA Go. Like, it's not free. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna have to pay for that. So like that's unfortunately just how the world's gone. We'd all love for it to be free, but unfortunately that's just not the way it is. But yeah, as you were even saying there, like I think Chris Kamara is the perfect example, because I remember even when I listened to him on a podcast before, and he was speaking about that incident where he was saying, I don't know what's going on and all this stuff. I don't know, Jeff. And he was even saying, like, after that happened, like one of the producers rang him and like was giving out to him, and he got called into the office the next day, and he was thinking like, I am going to get in massive trouble. But then they seen the views that the clip done, and they seen what people were saying about it and the reaction and everything else, and they gave him more time because of it. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it just goes to show like that people do enjoy.
Well, I'd argue personally the biggest views that an RT clip has ever got when it comes to the pundits has definitely been the Joe Brolly rant about the Sean Kavanagh tackle.
Yeah.
Because like what do GA fans love? Passion. GA fans love when someone is like really, really invested and loves their county and wants them to win. And the debates going on in the studio have always been really, really entertaining. Like you think about even the Pat Spillane, Sean Kavanagh back and forth before the Tyrone Kerry All Ireland semi-final last year. Like that was pure entertainment. Like everyone loved watching that, and everyone was talking about it and saying, oh, you got to go on to RT now because Joe Brolly's ranting here now, or Pat Spillane and Sean Kavanagh are going back and forth. Did you see that clip? Like, it's the proof is there. People love watching this. So I think they should lean more into it. I think that they should take a page out of what Sky have done with the Premier League, coverage, and say, look, people like watching this, even fan shows. And I know that is kind of pushing me and yourself forward, and other people that we've worked with forward, but the programs that they do where they have like Robbie Lyle who runs Arsenal Fan TV, and they have lads from Football Daily, and they have other football fans who have YouTube channels, and they have them covering for Sky Sports, and they have them bringing in their audience as well. That's just smart marketing, in my opinion. Like that's just, why would we compete with them when we can just have them come and bring their audience to us?
Yeah no, it's spot on. Like, and I think, look, I mean, if Sky wanted to do something ourselves, we obviously would have 100% jumped on board. But maybe it's one of them things where the GA is just a little bit behind, and like I think with.
But that's the only thing I'd say to you is, say that, as I mentioned there, sorry to cut across here, but say that Virgin got into covering GA and they hired a presenter who was a charismatic, like if they hired Marty Morrissey as a presenter, and then in the pundit box with him was Joe Brolly, Pat Spillane, like the most charismatic GAA, people that we've had in the game. What would you like? Or and Anagiri's there, with over 100,000 followers on Instagram, like the most followed person in the GAA on Instagram. Like, people would probably tune into the other one more if the coverage was more funny, if it had more of a humorous feel to it, if there was more debate between the pundits.
Yeah.
If it was more like, why did you say that? I don't agree with you there. Like, rather than just, yes, that is exactly what happened. Like, you know what I mean? That type of thing. Because O'Rourke isn't there next year, and he sometimes spoke very, very direct to the point. Pat Spillane, we know what he spoke like, and those two are gone next year. So I feel like they're slipping towards where it could be a little bit robotic. And I'm not saying that they are right now, but I really hope that they don't go there in the end. I really hope that they bring a bit of humor to it, and they bring a bit of a freshness to it that is similar to what the UFC have done with their broadcasts, and is similar to what Sky Sports have done with their Premier League coverage. Because I think it's funny to watch, and it is engaging, especially when you have ex-players on. Like, say you've Lee Keegan and you've Colin Cooper in the booth together. Why not throw them a bone? Throw them a question of, remember you just played against each other in 2014, that match down in Limerick, like, talk to me about that game. That'd be really entertaining. People would want to hear that. I don't know why they wouldn't lean into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's just, it delves into the way the world is today, where everyone's just afraid of offending everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what it is. And I feel like for RTE and for these other big broadcasters or whatever, like, I don't know if they're afraid of getting complaints, they're afraid of that they might offend someone, or like, so like, it's just overthinking everything, and like, just let it flow, in my opinion. Like, I think sometimes it's like, we all love analysis, and I think that's that's obviously why we tune in and watch, is to see analysis, is to see what's happened here, for moments to be broke down and everything else. But I think it probably has gotten too statistical, too in-depth, to the point that the casual fan doesn't know what's going on. And then even the really interested fans are like, okay, cool, but I already know this kind of, so like, maybe add a bit more humor, make it a bit more entertaining, so that when it's half time, I'm not just flicking through my phone, Yeah,
exactly. I mean, make people not want to leave the room, when it's, because I remember even seeing because I was at the Tyrone Monaghan game in 2013, and I remember seeing the Kavanagh foul on Conor McManus. I remember saying to my dad at the time, I remember being like, oh God, I cannot wait to see Brolly's reaction to this. Like, I can't wait to see what he's going to say about that foul. And lo and behold, one of the most viral clips in GAA history is produced. Like, I mean, that clip is still, still a nostalgia watch for GAA fans in today. Imagine if Brolly was reacting to the brawl between Galway and Armagh, the All Ireland quarterfinal. Like, that would have been pure gold. Watching that, pure characters reacting to some of the maddest moments in the GAA. Like, sure, remember Pat Spillane breaking down the 1996 brawl between Mayo and Meath, where I think he's talking about some kick that was shown, and he said, that would put Michael Flatley to shame. Like, that's stuff that is in GAA folklore. Like, everyone remembers these moments in the booth. And definitely I would be saying, look, in 2023, go a bit more out there. Sprinkle a bit of humor into the broadcast, like, sprinkle a bit of debate in, put people in the studio that don't always just agree with each other. Because as fans, we want to see debate. We want to see discussion. That is the thing that draws in the most eyeballs. Similar to the debate about David Clifford. More eyeballs means more content, more facilities, more money, and the game gets better.
100%. Yeah, well, I suppose we could go on about this for hours upon hours, and go through everything. But I think we'd probably be stuck here until tomorrow, maybe. But in terms of club moment of the week, I mean, I suppose all the fans running towards Clifford stands out as an obvious number one. There obviously wasn't too much club action at the weekend. I think Rathmore were the other Kerry side who booked themselves into a intermediate.
Glen getting to their first ever final, I think, was a pretty special moment as well.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with that as well. I think, Watergraham's Glen reaching an All Ireland final, and obviously the crazy
Lee Keegan's retirement as well.
Yeah, although it's not club related as such, yeah, I think discussing him should definitely make for a moment of the week. Well, yeah, cheers, Seamus, for coming on. Make sure to check out Play on GAA when everyone gets a chance as well. I'll be over there during the week to preview Dublin ahead of the 2023 inter-county season. So make sure to check that out when you get a chance. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all later. Seamus, cheers for coming on.
Thanks, Aaron. Good chat.